Methods of communication in nursing. Base of communication or different methods of communication explained below. Overview. Ways of communication include verbal communication, non-verbal communication, listening, written communication, visual communication. Research has shown that non-verbal cues and body language, facial expressions, tone of voice account for almost 55% of all communications. Define communication. Communication has been defined as importing or exchanging of information by speaking, writing, or using some other medium. Second definition, communication has been defined as it is a process by which information is exchanged between individuals through a common system of symbols, signs, or behavior. Communication process. A message or communication is sent by the sender through a communication channel to a receiver or to multiple receivers. Look at this picture, the communication process, sender, a message, encode using a channel, decode, send to recipients, then feedback, encode, choose channel, decode. Look at these barriers. In channel, having different barriers, experience, detail going on. Key components of communication process. First component, sender. Second, encoding. 3, message. 4, communication channel. 5, receiver. 6, decoding. 7, feedback. Detail about the sender develops an idea to be sent. Communication being with an idea. If you to construct a clear and actionable message, you need to organize your thoughts. Second, the sender encodes the message. Once the sender develops an idea, they need to present the message in a coherent structure. Three, the message travels over the channel of communication. The sender should select an appropriate medium for the message. This will depend on your relationship with the receiver, the purpose of your writing, and the urgency of the message. 4. Sender select the channel of communication. The communication channel you use should organize your information in a way that enhances your point. The important channels including A. Verbal, face to face, telephone, video conferences, presentations, and visual media. B. Non-verbal, eye contact, facial expressions, body language, dress code. C. Written, including emails, newsletters, press releases, text messages, social media posts, records, proposals, and other documents. D. Visual, graphs, chart, and drawings, etc. 5. Receiver receives the message. Next, the recipient receives the message. The receiver will process the message according to the communication channel the sender uses. For example, the sender would deliver the message by speaking to the receiver face to face. Six, the receiver decodes the message. The receiver then decodes the sender's message. In this stage, the receiver processes the information, understands its context, and analyzes its implications. This is one of the most crucial stages in the communication process. If the receiver can successfully decode the message, this implies the effectiveness of the communication process. 7. The receiver provides feedback. Feedback is the most important step in the communication process. Ask yourself the questions to analyze and improve your future communication. Different methods of communication. There are different methods of communication, and these include 1. Verbal communication, non-verbal communication, written communication, listening, visual communication. Detail going on. Verbal communication. Verbal communication is when we use the spoken word to communicate with others. This can be face to face with other person or group of people, or over the telephone or video call, for example Skype or Zoom, etc. Second, non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication helps you get a sense of how others are feeling and what they may be thinking. Non-verbal communication includes facial expressions, eye contact, hand movements, touch, and posture. Three, written communication. Written communication might be a letter, email, a report, or a message on social media. Written communication should aim to get your message across in a clear and concise manner. Four, listening. Actually, listening is one of the most important part of communication. As if we actually listen, we can truly engage with the person talking to us. If you do not listen during a conversation or a team meeting, for example, then you cannot engage or respond appropriately. Five, visual communication. Visual communication can take place with the help of visual aids. Drawing, graphic design, illustration, color, typography, signs, other electronic resources. Characteristics of effective communication. 1. Clear. 2. Concise. 3. Concrete. 4. Correct. 5. Considerate. 6. Complete. 7. Courteous. Detail going on. 1. Clear. Effective communication depends on the clarity of message. The more precious your message, the easier it is for the receiver to decipher it. In accordance with your actual purpose, many barriers to effective communication occur due to a lack of clarity in the message. Second, concise. In order to make effective communication, the message must be to the point. The message must be more about its content rather than its length. Do not add irrelevant information. As a result, it will be easier for the receiver to grasp the exact message. Furthermore, it will make your conversation less time consuming. Three, concrete. Effective communication requires specific, tangible, and valid information. The message you transfer must be supported with facts. For increased credibility, it helps your receiver or audience to understand the broader picture of your message. Concreteness reduces the possibility of misunderstanding, builds trust, and encourages constructive criticism. Four, correct. For effective communication, the language should be accurate. Also, the grammar and syntax should be correct. It increases the authenticity and credibility of the message. Any errors can degrade the clarity of your message, cause vagueness, and raise doubts. They may also have an adverse effect on the overall interpretation of the message. This may give a clumsy or negligent impression to your receiver. 5. Consider it. Effective communication must be judgment free. You and your receiver must consider each other's background and perception. For example, if your message conveys double meaning, sound disrespectful, therefore it might affect the receiver emotionally and they might see it in the wrong way. 6. Complete. Effective communications are complete because the receiver receives all the information. Giving a complete message helps them digest and act on the message correctly. Likewise, the message should have all the information to act upon. A complete message minimizes the need for follow-up questions. It also makes the communication process run more smoothly. Seven, courteous. It is the act of respecting the culture, values and belief of the receiver. In a way, it is like consideration. The message should avoid any kind of judgment or discrimination that might hurt other person's feelings. Instead, give a message that sounds genuinely polite and unbiased. Barriers to effective communication. One, linguistic barriers. Two, psychological barriers. 3. Emotional barriers. 4. Physical barriers. 5. Cultural barriers. 6. Organizational structural barriers. 7. Attitude barriers. 8. Perception barriers. 9. Physiological barriers. 10. Technological barriers. 11. Socio-religious barriers. 1. Linguistic barriers. It is the barrier caused due to differences in language, dialect, or accent. There are around 6,500 spoken languages globally, and many of them have different accents and dialect. Second, psychological barriers. There are various mental and psychological issues that may be barrier to effective communication. Some people have stage fear, speech disorders, phobia, depression, etc. All of these conditions are very difficult to manage sometimes and will most certainly limit the ease of communication. Three, emotional barriers. The emotional IQ of a person determines the ease and comfort with which they can communicate. A person who is emotionally mature will be able to communicate effectively. On the other hand, people who let their emotions take over will face certain difficulties. Four, physical barriers. They are the most obvious barrier to effective communication. The barriers are mostly easily removable, in principle, at least. They include barriers like noise, closed doors, faulty equipment used for communication. Five, hospital organizational structural barriers. As we saw, there are many methods of communication at an organizational level. Each of these methods has its own problems and constraints that may become barriers to effective communication. Most of these barriers arise because of misinformation or lack of appropriate transparency available to the employees. Seven, attitude barriers. Certain people like to be left alone. They are the introvert's personality, just people who are not very social. Others like to be social or sometimes extra clinging. Both these cases could become a barrier to communication. 8. Perceptual barriers. Different people perceive the same things differently. This is a fact which we must consider during the communication process. Knowledge of the perception levels of the audience is crucial to effective communication. All the messages must be easy and clear. There should not be any room for a diversified interpretational set. Nine, physiological barriers. Certain disorders or diseases or other limitations could also prevent effective communication. between the various channels of organization. The voice, dyslexia, etc. are some examples of physiological barriers to effective communication. However, these are not crucial because they can easily be compensated and removed. Technological barriers. Other barriers include the technological barriers. It is developing fast, and as a result, it becomes difficult to keep up with newest development. Hence, sometimes the technological advance may become a barrier. In addition to this, the cost of technology is sometimes very high. Socio-religious barriers. Different culture has a different belief, way of talking and living. Like when people from different cultures communicate in different ways, such as speaking different languages, holding different cultural beliefs, or using various gestures and symbols. Their cultural differences may become barriers to effective communication. Measures to overcome the barriers of communication in healthcare setting. First, clarify ideas before communicate. The person sending the communication should be very clear in his mind about what he wants to say. He should know the objective of this message, and therefore he should arrange his thoughts in a proper order. Second, communicate according to the need of the receiver. The centers of communication should prepare the structure of the message, not according to his own level or ability, but he should keep in mind the level, understanding, or the environment of the receiver. 3. Consult others before communication. At the time of planning, the communication suggestion should be invited from all the persons concerned. Its main advantage will be that all these people who are consulted at the time of preparing the communication plan will contribute to the successes of the communication. Four, be aware of language, tone, and content of message. The sender should take care of the fact that the message should be framed in clear and beautiful language. The tone of message should not injure the feeling of the receiver. As far as possible. The contents of the message should be brief, and excessive use of technical words should be avoided. 5. Convey things of help and value to the listener. The subject matter of the message should be helpful to the receiver. The need and interest of the receiver should specially be kept in mind. Communication is more effective in such a situation. 6. Ensure proper feedback. The purpose of feedback is to find out whether the receiver has properly understood the meaning of the information received. In the face-to-face communication, the reaction on the face of the receiver can be understood. 7. Consistency of message. The information sent to the receiver should not be self-contradictory. It should be in accordance with the objectives, policies, programs, and techniques of the organization. When a new message has to be sent in place of the old one, it should always make a mention of the change. Otherwise, it can create some doubts. 8. Follow-up communication. In order to make communication effective, the management should regularly try to know the weakness of the communication system. In this context, effort can be made to know whether to lay more stress upon the formal or the informal communication would be appropriate. 9. Be a good listener. It is the essence of communication that both the sender and receiver should be good listeners. Both should listen to each other's point of view with attention, patience, and positive attitude. A sender can receive much relevant information by being a good listener. How to improve nursing communication skills? 1. Actively listen. This means paying attention and truly listening. 2. Body language. This means being aware of your own body language and how this comes across to other people, and also being aware of the other person's body language. 3. Ask questions and provide feedback. This ensures engagement from you as the receiver of the message. 4. Make eye contact. 5. Be clear and to the point. 6. Take notes. 7. Proof. Read before sending anything in writing. 8. Use a strong, confident speaking voice, particularly important when you are doing a presentation. 9. Avoid using filler words like and so are. All filler words should be avoided where possible. 10. Be intentional about your non-verbal communication. Make an effort to display positive body language. You should use body language to support your verbal communication. For example, if you feel confused or unhappy, should be apply and consider psychological principles such as sense and sensations, perception, learning, memory, emotions, personality, intelligence, etc. for effective nursing communication skills. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.